You're up, okay.
All right, we're back in session, and this isn't a big budget meeting, but it's just to let you know what we're feeling and help you kind of prepare for your budget and get ready. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn it over to John.
So the first thing we're telling everybody here is we want to keep the budget flat. That means we don't want any increase in the total budget. So to the extent that you need to increase costs in one area or another, we want you to look through and see if you can find some other where you might be able to find some savings to be able to apply for that, but to keep the overall flat.
Okay.
And then there were some things we're asking every department to do, and one is to make sure you have a succession plan in place for any critical individuals, and that would include yourself. So if something were to happen to you or you couldn't come into work, there needs to be somebody there who could assume the responsibilities you have that are critical for the county, and that goes with any particular critical function.
Okay.
Make sure those plans are in place, whether that takes cross-training or whatever it takes. We want you to look at the processes in your department, see if you can find ways to be more efficient. That would include using technology however you can to increase efficiencies. To the extent that your department goes to training or has outside trainers that or conferences and things you go to, if you can find some way internally to develop your people to actually conduct trainings that you might be taking, and I don't know how much that is in your department.
That gets a little, I'm gonna use the word weird.
To the extent you can do it.
Complicated, I'll use complicated on
Right,
that one.
right.
But
Just something I wanted to bring up for people to think about, because I know the Sheriff's Department does an excellent job in developing their own people to do in-house training, so they're not constantly going out to outside trainers and that type of thing. And also take a look at possible grant funding, if there are opportunities. If you can bring in grants to cover certain expenses and things like that, that obviously is going to free up some money in your budget if you're covering it outside, so,
okay.
yeah, and that's it.
Okay.
Okay, Jeff?
No, just what Commissioner Crowder talked about, look for your efficiencies where you can. And you do a pretty good job of watching things pretty tight, so.
I do try to. I will admit the hardest one on that is the training aspect. Part of the implementation process with both CityWorks and the 911 system is we've just hit the wall where we've done all we can on our own. If we want to get trained up on stuff, we're gonna have to get outside help now. We've done all we can internally. That includes free courses online, like talking to tech support, kind of walking through processes instead of bringing somebody like a consultant or something in, doing Zoom calls, screen shares, that kind of a thing to walk through processes. And we've had hit a couple of points now, but we're gonna have to pay for some training. It's just where we're at.
Okay.
So.
And then the other thing, and if he said this and I just missed it, I apologize, but one of the things we're looking at is making sure everybody's salaries are where they need to be to keep us competitive with, and that's part of the savings. If you can find some savings somewhere that we can offset the salary fixes or things that need to be done, that's an area that we want to look at.
I've tried looking at that. For better or for worse, part of this evaluation process, we ask look at your job description and then look at what you do on a daily basis. Not a single one of us match our jobs anymore, not even close. So that's my biggest hurdle on that one. I would say on average, we are probably picking up I'm going to refer to myself and my two other full-time members. Our part-time person's still new enough that it's kind of not part of the full equation yet. But the three of us, on average, I would say probably picked up somewhere between 10 and 25% of an extra workload beyond our current job descriptions. Just flat out where we're at.
And what is that you've picked up? What areas have you picked up?
CityWorks itself has taken on, it's a little over half, about 60% of our total workload. And that's averaged across all of our workloads. Jess is almost entirely a CityWorks person now. She almost does not do any GIS anymore. What GIS she does is directly related to CityWorks. Part of this, I believe, is I'm gonna call it a miscommunication on the expectations on how much work CityWorks was supposed to be. How much the consultants we paid to come in were gonna be able to implement is a fraction of what we were told was going to happen. So at this point in time, we only have one department that's fully implemented on the asset management side of CityWorks, and that's Public Works,
Yeah.
which now that they've been into it a year, are completely revamping what they're doing. Like just almost completely I'm not gonna say built from scratch, but close to it. We haven't even gotten facilities implemented yet. We haven't gotten the event center implemented yet. Jess is still working on those. It's not just you're gonna do some GIS work for this system with maybe like some user management and some stuff on the side. It's taken over as a complete system implementation that we just didn't anticipate, and we're trying to figure out how to deal with that. Planning is looking at their permitting options right at the moment. They're still in discussion on what they want to do on that one, but Brianna's probably gonna go, I'd say 20 to 50% of her job is gonna be dealing with the permitting side of things. It just leaves us short on other things. We have a big project. I'm trying to remember who actually kickstarted this one. It was trying to get easements and right-of-ways and things like that mapped and put up so that everybody can see it. Initially, I would have thought, 2 to 5 years. We're at 5+ now. That has almost completely been dropped. We've got an intern who works part-time on it, and I've got my part-timer who works part-time on it. It's just a lot of other projects that are not critical. If it's not in front of me with a due date, I can't tell you when it's gonna get done. That's just where we're at, trying to get everything implemented. The other side effect of that one, of course, is that fair pay for fair work, I guess is the best way to phrase it. So hands down, flat out, my biggest budget considerations are pay. My girls have put in a lot of work. You were talking earlier about, cross-training. If one of us can't make it in, if one of the three of us is out, that job is out for that day, period. If they got up and walked tomorrow, I have no way to replace them at this point in time. That's the workloads that we're looking at on that one. And I don't think it's unfair to ask for appropriate pay increases for the amount of work that they do and the amount of skills they have had to learn and are still going to have to learn. So that's the hard one on that one. Everything else budget-wise is, I've got bits and pieces that I've been able to take out here and there. I looked at past usage for just about everything in my B budget, and how much is budgeted and approved and how much is actually used. I can make cuts in almost all of those. The training budget being the only one I'm asking for an increase on, because we are going to have to actually pay to get some classes. That's just where that one is at. The biggest question mark I've got is the Eagle View aerial imagery. I've got the contract. I still need Brian to review it, and then we're good to move forward on that one. There are a couple of optional things that are included in the current price that we might, what's called change detection. So it looks at the image from one year and then the next year, and it can tell you if, uses AI to go through and look at the imagery, and it can tell you if a building has appeared where there wasn't one before, if one has disappeared, or if the basic footprint of it has changed. That's all done through computer imagery. Their process is pretty top-notch. I know the assessors has been begging for it for a couple of years now, which is why we want to try to include it in this year's. I don't think we'll need it for our year 2 flight. So we do every other year. Year 1, then you pay the other half. Flight 2, pay the second half. Flight 3, pay the second half. I don't think we'll need the change detection for flight 2. It'd be a little over $1,500 that we'd be able to take off flight 2. So it's $7,700 a year. So flight 2 years would take off $7,700 each on that one. Flight 3, I'd need to talk to some people and see where we're at, how much development we're looking at, how much change they need. The nice part of this one is $7,700 a year is minuscule compared to sending people out in the field. They can look it on a computer and tell almost instantly when things have changed. It highlights all that. They can do that in their offices instead of having to go out and drive around, especially in some of the more off-road areas, and try to find stuff. So there's that as an option on that one. The other one that we did not know about, and I still am not, I'm in the middle of this right now, is working with the city of Chubbuck and the city of Pocatello and possibly BPTO to help pay for some of this. They have in the past. They weren't sure if they're going to contribute this year. It sounds like Pocatello is on board to help pay. In the past, they were contributing about $6,000 a year towards this. Chubbuck is in a flux right now. They lost their GIS person, who was the one who arranged all of this. Still waiting to hear back. The new person starts, I believe, on Monday, if I remember correctly. Once they're in and kind of have an idea what's going on, we'll know if they're going to help. Again, it was about $6,000 a year. I don't know if Maury has any money to put into it at all. At this point in time, he was going to check and get back to me, and I haven't heard back yet. So the biggest question mark is how much we as the county pay for the imagery if we can get Chubbuck and Pocatello to help contribute. So overall, the price on it did come down. It was just the bare minimum we were looking at before was about $53,000. We're still looking at it's just under $50,000 with some of these extras on it that we can take off on later flights if we want to negotiate on that. So, yep. So the only other one I've got that contributes, which is Adam's deal, is the cost of our Esri software. I obviously have no say on that. They charge us what they charge us, and that's where we are. I know it'd be a question mark whether or not we need that software, and it is a whole system-wide process. It supports all of our web maps, all of the individual applications that all of the different departments use. I do not have a good way to replace that system really at anything close to cost. So that 55 is kind of non-negotiable right now. So that's what I got.
Good deal.
So I think, what was my final, when I looked at my B budget, I think I brought it down. It wasn't a lot. I don't have a lot. It's a couple $100. I just don't have much negotiating room. I've tried to keep that as thin as I can. So,
Okay,
yep.
let's go ahead and go into executive session now.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we enter into executive session under Idaho Code 74-2061 A and B.
Commissioner Moser?